And that was kind of the first secret that I learned around promotion and progression is leverage. You know, talent is a marketplace. You are a product in that market, and if you can demonstrate your value and demonstrate your your value in the market, then it's going to be so much easier to progress and get ahead.
Communication is only effective if a person can actually understand it, hear it. And so how you actually communicate the work that you've done and the skills that you have is really big. So that's what we've been talking about a lot with visibility.
Interviewing for the role, and they're like, what makes you think you would be good for this role? And I'll be like, I've spoken to the district manager at 7-Eleven, here's my results. I've spoken to the district manager at Target, here's my results. So it was a lot easier for me to show them by proof versus promises that I could do the role, and it mitigated the risk of promoting me because I already had a proven track record.
Hello, and welcome back to the How to Get a Job podcast. Today, we're going to be talking not only about how to get a job, but how to get a promotion. And we have the best person we could possibly find to talk about getting promotions today. Alec Rickard is here with us to share his story of how he got promoted 5 times in 7 years and how you can do it too. Alec, thank you for being here. We're stoked to have you.
Thanks, Ellie. Thanks, Daniel. Yeah, good to see you guys again. And yeah, excited to share all the insights with your watchers and listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. If we can just get started, I'm sure everybody is wondering, how in the world were you promoted 5 times in 7 years? So tell us what led to those promotions, the story behind it, and how you unlocked that success for yourself.
Yeah, it's a funny stat. When I wrote it out, I was like, I need to double check this. And I was like going back to the dates, being like, let's double check this. And it was a very intense period of my career from 2017. But yeah, I'll share a little bit about kind of where I was before, and then what were the key lessons that I learned through those promotions, because it was really, each one revealed to me kind of a secret, I would say, about promotion strategy, progression strategy. My career was in corporate marketing, so highly relevant to marketeers, but I think it really holds true for people working in small and medium-sized businesses and large corporates as well, and across functions. And yeah, I guess just to paint the picture of where I was before that, I was pretty young in my career. It was pretty early, but I was very, very ambitious, very goal-orientated, very hardworking. And just before that phase, I'd really set myself some very ambitious goals. I wanted to get promoted to director by 30. I was very motivated by progression and standing out and getting ahead. And I guess 2016, 2017, I had a phase where I was just working incredibly hard. I was really dedicated. I'd said, I'm going to get promoted as fast as I can. In this company, it was L'Oreal in the UK. And I was working like 12, 14, 16-hour days, day after day, week after week. And at the end of that year, I asked for a promotion, and they were like, no, you're not ready. You need to do more time in the role. You need to broaden out your skill set. We need to see you be more consistent. And it was a really strong knock to my confidence. I'd just given my all to the company and to the team for so long. And I was like, what the hell? And I saw friends getting, peers in different parts of the company and different teams getting promoted, getting up to brand manager, getting big pay rises. And I sort of thought, how the hell have I worked this hard for so long and I'm not getting any reward for it? So I thought, I'm going to go look elsewhere. And this was the first kind of promotion. I went and got a job offer from another company to be promoted to brand manager. And shared that with L'Oreal. And 2 weeks later, I had a promotion to brand manager at L'Oreal with a 40% pay increase that would have made me the highest paid brand manager in the UK. And I was like, what is different here? The only thing that is different is that I've gone and got an offer externally. And that was kind of the first secret that I learned around promotion and progression is leverage. You know, talent is a marketplace. You are a product in that market, and if you can demonstrate your value and demonstrate your value in the market, then it's going to be so much easier to progress and get ahead. So that was kind of the first secret was create leverage.
Hmm.
That was the first one.
I have a follow up question for you, Alec. I think it's super interesting. A lot about how much overlap there is in growing your career and your personal brand as there is marketing for a product. Like in your case, a lot of the product has been in health and beauty, right? Um, and you said leverage. How much do you think it plays visibility over ability when it comes to getting a promotion?
Visibility over ability. Yeah, I think if you were thinking about your broader career strategy, I would say I talk about accountability, relationships, and credibility to what your those are like the three strategic pillars that I teach people. Um, so to the question you just asked, ability is really what I talk about is credibility, and relationships is the visibility piece. And I would say that visibility is just as important as ability, just as important as the work that you're producing, the performance. I think everyone assumes going into their career that performance is everything. You know, if I just do my job and do it well, then the results will come. And we're trained to think that, you know, like if I work hard, the results will come. And the reality the reality is those that are visible are the ones that really get promoted.
Yeah.
It's a harsh truth, yeah.
Yeah,
It's interesting there. Sorry, Ali, like
it's okay.
real quick, because I don't have a question, but it's more of a statement. It's like I see my wife's career like kind of take that trajectory. My wife, just context for listeners, is like she's your typical really good at school, went to a great university, had a really good grades. She is a very hard worker, but is not one to promote herself or pat herself on the back or try to bring attention to herself. She's like head down. She'll never call in sick. She'll like ideal employee. I always like I wish I can hire her. Right. And it wasn't until maybe the last 6 years, 7 years of her career where, you know, doesn't matter. She's not listening to me. It's like parents don't listen to the kids don't listen to their parents. I had a mentor named Francis who we were at dinner, and she was like, Jessica, like, why are you not like higher? Why are you not a manager? Why are you not growing into it? It's like, you need to get more involved. You need to get more visibility. And like, it's not that you shouldn't hard work. And she started doing that, getting involved in ERG groups, you know, having more conversations about with her manager about like, what do I need to do to get promoted? Like, I'm not saying give me the promotion in a sense. She's like, what are the steps that you're looking for to get to the next level so that I can go and work at that? And the funny part, she was doing a lot of it. He just had no idea.
Yeah.
And a part of it is on the manager, but it's, I would say 51% or more is on the employee. And that ultimately has led to her getting promoted over and over. And it's like, yes, you can work really hard, but if you're not actually getting that visibility, doesn't work. At the same time, if you're getting visibility but not putting in the work, it doesn't work either. So it's kind of like you need
Yeah.
both.
So what
Absolutely.
I was going to say, and I agree with everything that's being said here. It's something that stood out for me when you shared your story of you had asked for the promotion. They said, we need to see more time in the role. We need to see these skills. The key word there was see. We need to see it. And what we often think when we're working in a role and we're working really hard, like we assume that they're going to see it. Like they have to see it, right? Like, don't they approve of my time card and they see that I clocked in for 14 hours?
Yeah.
Like, don't they see it? But the reality is they don't. And you know, communication is only effective if the person can actually understand it, hear it. And so how you actually communicate your the work that you've done and the skills that you have is really big. So that's what we've been talking about a lot with visibility here.
100%. And there's two things I would just build on that to like visibility, and there's two things you guys mentioned. One is communicating what you want, communicating your goals to the people that are going to help make it a reality is critical. You know, having a goal in your mind is one thing, but actually talking to your manager, talking to your mentors, talking to HR, saying, "I want to get to this level. I want to get there at this time," it just creates the expectation and it creates the conversation that you can have. That's absolutely massive. And I think the second is, to Ellie, what you were speaking about is like, you have to get comfortable selling yourself. They say, I want to see it. And we assume everything we're doing every day is being watched and that people can see when we send a good email or people can see when we deliver a project. And the truth is, everyone else is just doing their job. Mm-hmm. Everyone else is managing their team. I remember when I first became a manager, I was like, oh my God, 50% of my job is now doing one-to-ones, coaching people, mentoring people, managing the team's workflow. And then I took a job that was managing no one, and I got all this time back. And so it was just like revealed to me, managers are so stretched. I think managers get a really tough time today. There's a lot of heat out there on managers, but managers are incredibly stretched people. They're the people in the organization with the hardest amount of responsibility versus time. And so if you're not communicating your goals, if you're not selling yourself, if you're not saying, these are my results, and that's why it delivered value to the company, you're going to find it really hard to get yourself in positions to get promoted. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. Ellie, you got some amazing questions. I'll let you take them.
Okay.
They're all, yeah. The follow-up questions.
Yeah. So one of the things you've been talking about here a couple of times is skills. And I think that some people, when they struggle to get promotions, they think that, maybe there's a skill that they needed to be born with in order to get this promotion. So what I want to know from you is, for those who might think that career success is a matter of luck, how much of your success is attributed to skills that you've learned yourself and gained versus skills that you were naturally born with?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. I don't want to discount that luck is a factor, because it is, right. Like, everyone gets good breaks and everyone gets bad breaks, and I think sometimes you can be in the right place at the right time, and sometimes you can be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and it can go the other way. And so I don't want to, luck is a factor in your career, but you don't want to release control to the idea of luck. You don't want to use luck as a reason why you can't get ahead. And so what I would say is, you want the more proactive you are in your career, the more control you have over your career. The more passive you are, the less control you have, and the more luck will be the deciding factor. Because if you're not being intentional and you're not being proactive, then luck, the amount that luck impacts your career will just massively increase. So that's the first thing I'd say. And the other thing is what you have naturally and where you develop to. Everyone is on the same journey. I think when we think about careers more broadly, I think everyone is on a journey of kind of discovering what they're passionate about, what goals they want to orientate themselves towards, what motivates them. And that's the most common question I hear as a career coach is, I don't know what I want. I don't know what I'm meant to have a career, but I don't know what kind of career I want to have. And so everyone is trying to figure that out. And I think it's the same thing with skills and the talent versus development debate. Just tying all those things together, it's the challenge is not to have more skills, be born with more skills, or be more talented. The challenge is, how proactive can you be and how strategic can you be around developing yourself? How proactive and strategic can you be around the career goals that you set, and the career strategy that you set? And those are the things you can control, and those are the things that will bring you results over time. So, everyone has good luck and bad luck. Some people have a lot of natural talent. So other people have less. But the main thing that you can control is how much ownership you take, how proactive you are, and how strategic you are over time.
I want to talk about more on the strategy side there, because you talked a lot about, a lot of things that are effort, but one thing you mentioned a little earlier is leverage. Like you're
Mhm.
able to leverage another offer, right,
Yeah.
in order to get promoted. Now, when I think about leverage, I don't just think about leveraging another offer. I always just think about leveraging and saying skills. Like, what are the skills that I can build that will give me the maximum amount of leverage in the job to be able to over exceed in my job to then therefore to be promoted.
Yeah.
How would you advise a somebody who's either in a role where they feel like they deserve a promotion or they feel like they're ready for the next step to analyze their daily tasks to then figure out what are the skills that they should be increasing more because to give you the highest amount of leverage?
Uh, there's, let me think. The two tactics come to mind immediately. I would say three. It's one. Um, every role has a job description.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and even the ones that they say doesn't. You know, um, the role has responsibilities. So the first thing you can do is you can understand what the requirements are of the role on paper. Like go and get the official version of what the role is. If that's an internal promotion, go and ask HR, um, what is the job description for the next level up?
Mm-hmm.
Or if they can't give it to you, go to your manager and say, I would like to see what the requirements are of the next level. And one of the reasons to do that is it puts it in writing, it puts it on paper, and it makes it a hard copy. And then you have something that you are genuinely holding the company accountable to. Because I think one of the biggest challenges in your career, especially when you're negotiating with companies, is they'll move the goalposts. They'll say, you need to do X, Y, and Z. And then you go and do them. And they're like, yeah, but we also need to see this. And then you run off and pursue that.
Yeah.
The more you can work back to what is the official position on this role and this level, the more you're targeting and aiming at the official version. That's one thing. That's the first tactic I would say. The second is go and talk to the people already at that level. Go and ask them what are the skills that make you most effective in your role. What are the skills that have made the biggest difference in your performance? Um, and importantly, what are the two or three skills that you developed in most that helped you get this role, that actually made the difference between you applying for the role and not getting it and getting it? And everyone will have their story, everyone will have their, oh, when I did my interview, they really commented on my relationship building skills or something like that. So that's number two, is go and talk to the people at that level already. And the third is imitation, I would say. The fastest way to learn anything is to imitate the actions of the people already at that level. And you can apply that to so many different things. But in your progression and in your career, you want to imitate the people that are already at the level you want to be at.
Yeah.
That's the third. Observe them. What are they doing? How do they do it? What do they talk about? Pay attention to what they're doing, and then mimic it, imitate it.
I love that because we were in different industries, and when I look back on my career at PepsiCo, I was there for 6 years, and I held four different roles. So definitely not the same speed of promotion as you did. But if I think back of like the biggest jump, which was the hardest jump, that was going from a district manager to a regional account manager in a CPG company or PepsiCo. Um, I, without knowing, did a lot of what you did, and I think is the power of naivety. Like I went and because there was the way I looked at it, it's like the corporate pyramid. So there were about 1,000 district managers in the southeast region of Frito Lay, and
Mm,
there was less than 20 regional key account managers. So
yeah,
like you go from like there's a that's the biggest jump. Like the
yeah,
hardest promotion is going from district manager because there's thousands of them or hundreds of them. Sorry, maybe not thousands in the country. There's about 250 in the region. To go into less than 25 roles. So like 90% of people are not going to get promoted, and not just a year, because out of those 25 people, there might be five that there's movement or flow. A lot of them were been account managers, regional account managers for 10, 15 years, and they had just plateaued there in a sense. And so you were literally having 250 people. Out of those 250, let's say like half of them actually actively wanted to get promoted. The other half were either too new or were like plateaued at that level. And so
mm-hmm.
you have 150 people fighting for five roles. And so it's extremely competitive. And I remember um, building really strong relationships with the people who are currently doing the job, and especially the ones who are doing it the best, and try to identify what I could take off their plate. So if there's, for example, if there's a guy that's calling on Target, because Target ultimately became my customer, he's covering Target for all the Southeast, and there's like 1,500 stores, and there's like probably like 50 Target district managers. It's impossible for this guy to meet with all 50 district managers. He just doesn't have the bandwidth. So he's meeting with the regional or the vice president. So I said, I got the person in Orlando. If you just give me their contact information, because you have access to that, I'll take over that call for you. And I think that was a really good way for me to low risk. It's just one district manager out of 50, but high reward, because if I can get those 15 Target stores to grow faster than the average Target in the region, I can say, hey, now that I'm better than the district, he just has a lot, or that regional, I can just use that as leverage. And all of that is, right, you're having those conversations, you're imitating, you're learning, you're taking things off their plate. And I remember interviewing for the role, and they're like, what makes you think you would be good for this role? And I'll be like, I've spoken to the district manager at 7-Eleven, here's my results. I've spoken to the district manager at Target, here's my results. So it was a lot easier for me to show them by proof versus promises that I could do the role, and it mitigated the risk of promoting me because I already had a proven track record. And so like love the actionable advice, because I did it by luck, but you're teaching this in there's a strategic mechanisms, which is awesome.
So Daniel, you spoke about the relationships. I want to speak to the job description part. My background is organizational psychology. We build job descriptions, we write them, we love them. And early in my career, this is actually before I was even an organizational psychology professional, I wanted a promotion. I was an associate recruiter. I wanted to become a recruiter. And when I initially approached the conversation, it wasn't quite a no, but it was like I don't think so. And so I was like, oh, okay. So let me print out the job description. And I basically just did a color-coded highlight. I highlighted everything in green that I was already doing, things in yellow that I was actively learning, and then things in pink that I had never touched before. And there was, I would say, like 85% green, 10% yellow, and 5% pink. And so I basically just showed my boss. I was like, I'm kind of already doing the job. And then she was like, okay, here's your promotion. So I think if you actually put pen to paper or highlighter to paper and say I'm actively doing this role, or maybe through that exercise, I realized that, I wasn't ready. And so I needed to do all these yellows and these pinks and change that. So I personally love the job description advice when it comes to promotions, because that's what worked well for me.
Ellie, quick question for you on that then. So on our resume, we're trained to put the most important things to the top. When you are designing job descriptions, because I never wrote a job description, I was like, if I'm hiring for a role, someone like you would be like, use this, stay within the guidelines, right? Do you also put the most important task on the top of requirement list, or how is that designed from your point of view?
Every organization is different, and some of them, I think, in my opinion, the best way to do it is to separate it by how much you're going to be doing that thing. So some job descriptions, it'll say 50% of your work is this, 40% is this, and 10% is this. So they're kind of categorized by type. That's my personal favorite, because then it does kind of put it in that order of what's the most relevant. I'll be honest, that the job analysis was the only class I didn't get an A in. I think I got an A- or a B+. So I think it was an A-. So it's not my area of expertise. It's not my favorite part. But I think that job descriptions that are more specific, the worst job descriptions are the ones that are vague, where it's just like an idea of what you're going to be doing, and it's not actually anything specific or anything that you could track. So when it comes to job descriptions, and particularly in the conversation of promotions, you want to be looking at what are those specific actions, / how specific is the job description. Luckily, in my case, the job description was very specific and very well written. And so that made it a lot easier for me to actually say, look, I have done these things. Here's the evidence of what I have done. So I don't know if that answers your question fully, but And I think really the answer is that every company does it differently. Every job description writer does it differently. But I think it would make sense to that your priorities would be at the top. But you can also, that's also a good time to take in your manager and your relationships to ask them to say, okay, if this is the job description, what's not in this job description that I should know? That's what I would recommend.
And just two things to pick up on there from a promotion and progression strategy perspective. I would just say, we're all talking about proof. Like Daniel, you proved that you could already do the next level up, and you found a way to get a piece of the pie that you could then prove. I already did it on this district. I already did it. So when you went to the interview, you were producing hard results. That's one that, that's execution proof. Whereas Ellie went and got the job description, which is essentially the company's position on what you have to be able to do to get the role. And she just went through it and said, I'm already doing this. I'm already doing this. And she kind of gave it back to them. So proof is such an important part of what we're discussing. And I think being able to articulate and demonstrate what you are delivering and the results is a key part of the credibility strategy, I would say. And the second thing I would just say to Ali's point is, this is a great tactic, especially for people in their early career when you go through roles a little bit quicker in your career, to go and ask for what the next level is, because most companies have it's much clearer at those levels.
Yeah.
And I would say, if they don't have one, that's quite a big red flag, because it becomes much harder to negotiate with a company when they don't have a formal perspective on what their expectation is of the role. I know most of the roles I went into where there was no job description, they didn't work out.
Yeah.
because they don't know what they want. And so then they don't know how to assess you. So if you're going for promotion and you're asking for what the next level requires and they can't articulate it to you, that's a warning sign to say, well, it might be a warning sign to say, okay, I need a plan B, because they actually aren't going to be able to qualify what I need to do to get the promotion. And if they breadcrumb you for 6 months like that, being like, well, it might be this, it might be that, or we need to see X, Y, and Z as well, then that's when you're saying plan B. Go and get an official version from someone else and create the leverage. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you just mentioned credibility. I know that's one of your 3 steps: accountability, relationships, credibility.
Yeah.
We've talked a little bit about most of those so far, but I'd love to hear your description. Tell us more about these 3 steps.
Yeah, I think for me, they were the sort of broadest buckets that I could find that are consistently effective for people. I talked at the start about each of the promotions I got revealed a different insight into what's effective, and I'm going to be producing pretty soon, like the 6 secrets, I would say, to getting promotions most consistently, and they sort of fall within these buckets. So just to touch on those, like, A is for accountability, and this is very much the personal piece. It's about your personal accountability. What does that mean? It's how are you managing yourself and your career? Do you have clear goals that you're setting? Are you setting yourself deadlines to achieve those goals? One of the biggest I don't know, flaws I see in people's goal setting is people have goals and they're ambitious about them, but they have no deadline. And you would never do that in your day job. You would never be like, oh, I'm going to deliver this project sometime in the future. Like, you would say, I'm going to deliver it in 3 months. Like, it's the same with your career. You have to set yourself a promotion goal and then set yourself a deadline of when you're going to do it by. So that's a form of accountability. And there's other versions of accountability, like, what is the mindset that you need to achieve your goal? Often people just need to be encouraged to give themselves permission to actually ask for what they want. We've talked about that, giving yourself permission to communicate your goals. And one of the promotions that I got in that 7-year stretch was I was looking for an international move to the US, and I was told flat out by the head of HR in the UK, we do not send people abroad. We do not do international moves. Most people, I think, take no at face value from companies, like, no, you're not ready to be promoted. No, you can't move into the other, into the new role. Don't take no from no is not the end of the discussion. Like, personal accountability is saying, okay, I heard no from that person. I'm going to go round that person and find a yes. And so, one of the things I did in that promotion was I went and spoke to 30 people in the US, and I just went round them, and I found an HR director in the US who was like, we would love to bring someone from the UK. And then I sent her that email saying, I've got an HR director in the US who does want to bring someone across. So it's just, it's the personal accountability mindset to say, this is a goal, this is when I'm going to deliver it by. And when someone says no to me, I'm going to go round them and find a yes. That's accountability. Relationships, we've talked
Alec,
about.
before you go to relationships, sorry, I just wanted to say that's awesome. Like, I think that reminds me of like when they interview Elon Musk and they say, like, he tells his engineer says that we can't do it, and he goes, "Does it break a law of physics?" No, it doesn't. Okay, then there's a way. There's a way. And so, sorry, I just I love that persistence, and that HR director had a limited belief because he may have never seen it happen, and then someone else on the other side of the world is like, right, this is perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
And companies have so many rules. There's so many. That was one of the most demotivating things when you were young in your career, I think, and probably right across people's career. But you hear no all the time. No, you can't do that. It's not the way we do things here. No one's ever done that before. No, we don't move people across teams. And you start to adopt those no's, and you start personalizing them and being like, oh, well, that's just the end of the journey. And it's a real mindset shift to say, that's just that person's perspective. Like, I'm going to go and find someone who will say yes.
But you must have been surrounded by people that had overcome limiting beliefs that said, Alec, what do you like? Just because that guy said, or were that naturally you and by yourself already knew no from him doesn't mean a no forever? Like were you did you have a good support system? How did you have that mindset to be able to overcome that? Because I would say 99% of people would have taken the no.
Yeah, and I think this is the transformation I went on. Is I heard those no's when I was young and I took them. I was like, oh, okay, I'll back off. Like, I won't. Before, when I was at L'Oreal in my first company, there was a role coming off the grad scheme on a brand that I just loved, and I think it was a men's care brand, and I really wanted to do it. And I went to the guy and he was like, no, we don't take grads. And I was like, oh, okay. Applied for a different job, went somewhere else in the business. The next grad rotation, a grad went into that team. I was like, you said you don't take grads, and it was just like that.
And the guy was like, some HR person put him on my team. I didn't even have a choice.
Yeah. They were really great at the role, and they did a presentation about how they loved the brand so much. And I was like,
I could have done that. Like, I could have been there. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was moments like that. And that happened so many times over the first 5 years of my career, when I realized I'm hearing all these rules from the company. Companies and corporates especially are so hard to negotiate with. You really have the truth. The point about leverage is you actually have very little of it. And so when you just gain a little bit of it, it tells so much more in the negotiation, because and they just create these rules out of thin air. Like, no, we don't do that here. The best one is no one's ever done that before.
Yeah.
Which was the one I heard about the US move, well, we've never moved. And it's like, yeah, but, we do live in a global workforce now. So just don't, when people tell you no, I think the challenge is to ask yourself, or ask them, well, what could I do to prove to you that this would be worth your time?
Yeah.
Throw it back to them and say, what's one other thing that I could do? Or who's one other person that I could speak to? just create the next step so that the no isn't the end of the conversation. That's what you're always trying to do. You're trying to
Yeah.
create one more step in the process.
I would say one thing, we can move on to relationships. You
Yeah.
said something about like companies have a lot of leverage, and when you have a little one, I actually want to disagree with you, and I'll explain to you my thoughts, like in a way. I think companies create the illusion that they have all the leverage.
Yeah.
But now being a business owner and like growing a team, doing 7 figures, I tell this to my team, they have more leverage over me than they even can imagine, right? Except it doesn't seem like that from the outside looking in. And so what I've really come to the conclusion is that companies have short-term leverage, is that no one's patient enough to build the leverage. And that's where when you build your personal brand, like you're doing amazing on LinkedIn, right? And so that built leverage for you. So no matter what happened in your corporate job, they lost leverage every time you grew professionally. And so I say all that to say is like in a short term, on a day by day, yes, companies have a lot of leverage. In a bigger horizon, you can have way more leverage if you played your card right. Sorry, digress. Probably another episode, another time. But that's kind of what I mean. I agree with you in the short term perspective. Like I remember going to the career fairs and like doing like I have no shot in getting a job at PepsiCo, and then being in the other side of the table and be like, we're struggling finding good talent, and I'm like, what? Like this is like disconnect. Anyways, digress. Let's go to. I know we're time's flying in this conversation. Let's talk about relationships and credibility.
Yeah, relationships. Careers are fundamentally about people. Careers are still they're still about human relationships and who and what advantages you can create. And any promotion decision, there's a human at the end of it. Someone decided to promote you, and I think often, so the relationship strategy is just understanding who is making that decision and influencing them. That is fundamentally what it's about. Most people don't even know who the person is making the decision. They assume it's their manager. So many people push their manager to promote them. And the manager doesn't even have the final decision. And then the manager gets frustrated and says, stop talking to me about it. Stop asking me because I can't make it happen.
Yeah.
And then the talent gets frustrated. So, understand who is actually making the decision and then finding ways to influence them. It can be as bold as go and talk to them, like say hello to them every single day for a week, go into their office, bring them a coffee, ask if they'll go for a lunch with you, find ways to get FaceTime with them informally, and then more and more do it formally, ask for 30 minutes, communicate your goals, communicate your value, and then find people that influence that person. Maybe you're a little bit further along in your career and that person is a president in a company or a vice president in a company, and it would be maybe a breach of etiquette for you just to jump into their inbox and be like, hi. So who do they have a really good relationship with? The digital director. Okay. How can you influence the digital director who's great friends with them so that they say, oh, Alec, he's a great talent. You want to promote him. So, mapping relationships in an organization, mapping decision makers, and then strategically building relationships and influence is relationship strategy. And the last is credibility, which is really just, I think you guys actually put it well, which is like, it's the proof. It's the proof that you're good at your job. It's the performance. Most people think, I'll work hard and the results will come. And it's true. It's like the non-negotiable. You have to have that, but then you want to layer the other things on top. So, credibility is really performing in the role, demonstrating that you are ready for the next level, imitating the people at that level, and then producing work that shows you will be effective at that level. That's the key. That's credibility.
Amazing.
Yeah, I'm not surprised that Daniel and I are talking about proof. We're big proof people. Very cool, Alec. I appreciate you so much for coming and sharing your stories with us. And as Daniel said, this conversation totally flew by. I know it did for me. For those who are listening and they want more and they wish that there was more hours left in this episode today, I'm sure that they should connect with you on LinkedIn. We'll make sure to link that. But on your LinkedIn, you also offer one-on-one strategy calls. So I'm curious if one of our listeners is like, it's time for my promotion, I'm going to book a call with Alec. What should they expect from that call?
Yeah, so it's a 30-minute call. Although often I'll go to 45 minutes with people.
Don't we
Um,
all?
and the focus of the session is to very clearly define what your goal is and map the areas of the strategy which will make the biggest difference for you. So fundamentally, against that arc framework that I just shared, accountability, relationships, and credibility, where is the area where you can make the biggest difference? That's what we kind of talk about in the strategy session, and often we'll define the goal, which is so important. Understanding what you want, when you want to achieve it by, why it's important to you, and then just saying, okay, well, you're performing great, but you need to build the relationship. So here's 3 things you can do to build your relationships more strongly in the next 30 days, 60 days. Or you know what you want to achieve, but you just don't know how to get started. So accountability strategy, we're going to check in with each other on WhatsApp 3 times in the next 3 weeks, and you're going to make sure that you take these steps. It's that sort of thing. It's just getting the strategy session is really giving people clarity on what they want, what they need to do, and just giving people the first 3 steps to get started. I think that's so important.
I love that. That's so valuable.
If I can just share, I'm launching a newsletter next week as well, which is going to be a free resource for people. So if they visit my LinkedIn in the next week or so, they'll see that become available, and that's going to be called Promotion Secrets. So really, I'm going to be sharing real life stories of top performers across different businesses, different sectors, different industries, and telling their stories of jobs they wanted, how they got them, rejections they got, how they overcame them. So there'll be a lot of great value in that. And equally, I'm going to be sharing a free email course, a 6-day email course, which is going to be the 6 secrets to a 6-figure promotion. So if you're someone who's been stuck on 30K, 50K, 70K for a while, but you want to break that 100K mark, then that free email course will be perfect to get you there.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Daniel, any parting words?
No, that's amazing. Thanks for sharing all your knowledge and advice here. Continue to provide value on LinkedIn, email course, and everything. You're awesome, and continue growing. Keep building out the business.
Thank you, guys. I enjoyed this conversation. I could have kept going. I love this stuff. So thank you for bringing me on. I really appreciate it, and good luck with the podcast.
Yes, our pleasure. So do we. We love talking about this too. And folks, for those of you listening, thank you so much for listening to another episode of the How to Get a Job and Now How to Get a Promotion podcast. And we want to hear from you. What did you like about this episode? Drop it in the comments. If there's any coaches you want us to bring onto the show, let us know. We want to do what's best for you. This is why we do this podcast. It's for you guys. So thank you, Alec, again for being here. And that's a wrap.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye, everyone.
That too.